I'm sitting there filming. I know I got him, but because all the rain is blurring my vision in this little peephole in the camera, I called Mark off the buck, right? I was like, don't shoot. I don't have him.
Bold move by a new guy.
Yeah, I was like, in my mind, I'm like, he does this every day on these awesome farms. Like, if I have to call him off one, we'll just go whack another one. Like in my mind, this happens every day up here, right?
Because that's what TV made it seem like.
Yes.
For sure.
I called him off the deer, and he's like, how'd you not have him? I was like, well, I did, but I couldn't tell for sure, and I didn't want you shooting off camera, so I figured it was a safe move. So we get back, we look at the footage. He's like, you got him. It's perfect. Why'd you call me off? And there were some other words exchanged by him, but he was not happy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then the next morning, we go out and we kill one right off the bat. Footage was a smash. Everything was beautiful. Everything was good.
Welcome back to another edition of the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast, brought to you by DeerCast. I'm your co-host, Matt Drury. Unfortunately, this week, Tim is out, but I got Aaron Bennett in studio with me, longtime Drury Outdoors team member, used to work with Mark and Terry at the farms.
Full time.
Have we ever talked about that on the podcast?
Not with me, I don't think.
That's probably, let's start with that lane. So you guys heard me talk about it throughout the fall. Aaron and I shared a lease together, a new lease that we picked up. Aaron and I have been hunting together for a long time, and Aaron's helped me. He's in the real estate business, so he's helped me over the years buy and sell properties. He's kind of the main agent in this area. Of course, we also have an affiliation with Mossy Oak Properties, but they don't really have an agent in this specific area that I'm always looking for land. So Aaron's with Whitetail Properties, and of course the relationship dates back probably close 15 plus years, wouldn't it be?
It's 2007.
Yeah. So it's been a long time. So back then, we ought to dig into that, because when you started, so you did 2 tours, overseas in the Marines, right? And then you came back home and you were working at Bass Pro. Was that right?
Yep.
Here in St. Charles?
Yeah. I worked at Bass Pro Shops for probably about a year and a half. Probably.
So if I remember right, one of your brothers was working at like a restaurant, like an O'Charlie's or something like that.
3 of my brothers were. They were working at Red Robin and O'Charlie's.
And so Mark goes in.
Mark and Tracy would bounce around and go to all those places, and like they would see my brothers all the time. And that's kind of how it all got started, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so this would be like in the off season. Mark would come back here from Iowa for a little bit because he was he was proofing shows and helping on the TV side. So it made more sense for him to be down here. So while he was down here, of course, him and Tracy were going out to dinner and stuff. So one of your brothers, he sees Jeremy. He meets Jeremy, and all of Aaron's brothers, all the ones I know, all real chatty Cathys, right? And so they recognize him and start talking like, "Oh yeah, I got a brother that could film." And Mark's notorious for being like picking people up out of the street and I'm like, "Oh, do you have any experience?" "No, but you hunt?" "Okay, you'll
that
work."
was me.
So take us through it a little bit.
So I think I was still in the Marine Corps at that time.
Oh, okay.
When that was first still kind of going on, and I told my brother Jeremy, I said, "Hey, look, I'm going to be getting out here in 4 or 5 months, and going to be looking for a job back home." Actually, I was supposed to go to police academy, and then I tore my ACL, so that went out the window like 2 weeks before police academy started. So ended up getting a job at Bass Pro Shops, and in the meantime, Mark was kind of vetting me a little bit about a farm manager position, and ultimately, I guess he determined I probably wasn't a good fit for it, which thank God, because I look at all the other guys have to do, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to be, because at that time it would have been just me.
Yeah, it was a total different animal.
Maybe John Williams a little bit, trying to cover all that ground and do all that.
Yeah. And
then probably about a year and a half later, I remember I was on my way to class. I was going to St. Charles Community College. I was on my way to class, and Mark just calls me up out of the blue, and he's like, "Hey, you still interested in filming?" I was like, "Yeah." And it was like middle of October. He's like, "Well, can you be up in Iowa by like noon tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll be there."
Yeah, what the hell?
I didn't even think about it, right? So like so we chatted for a little bit, and he's like, I got this big deer I'm after, and need a cameraman, and if you can get up here by noon, we can get in the spot. I had never been to Iowa before in my life, and so I don't know where I'm going, and so anyway, I go to class. I didn't really say much to my teachers, although I said, well, I probably won't be around for the next week. And then when I went to work at Bass Pro later that day, I told my manager, I was like, hey, here's what's going on. And he knows how big I am into all this stuff. So he's like, go for it, man. And if it works out, great, we'll deal with it. And that's kind of how it all started, quite frankly.
So, okay. So you go up to Iowa, you get the call, you go up, and right out of the gate, first night out, what happens?
Well, the very first night,
because I do know this story kind of.
Well, the first night we saw some good bucks, not the one he was after. And then I think it was the next day or the day after, he had this big deer. And later we call him the rainy day 8. But me and Marco sitting in the stand, and it's pouring down rain.
And this is still back, like that's back when it's still primarily tree stand hunting.
Tree stands.
Not a ton of box blinds yet. You know, some of the homemade stuff that Terry's
Small
construction
tree
guys.
stands. I don't know if those are API or what they were back then, but they were small tree stands pouring down rain all day long.
And back before like safety harnesses, it was safety belts.
It was a safety belt. And Mark's like, okay, it's pouring down rain. So I've got the big camera in a trash bag covered up that I'm like just standing huddled over because like I got to be able to pull this thing out because we're seeing a lot of deer.
Don't make any noise.
Yeah.
That trash bag.
Yeah. And I have another palm quarter that I'm trying to keep dry at the same time. Well, what had happened is there was a buck that was bedded out in this brushy field. We're in the 171 set. No one here probably knows what that is. But this buck is bedded out in this brushy field, and we're basically sitting on him all day long waiting for him to get up. And Mark, I think that was after he hurt his leg, so he had a doctor appointment he had to go to. So he climbed out like around noon, quietly, carefully, like the buck is still bedded there.
Like how far?
Maybe like 100 yards.
Okay.
100 yards, 150, something like that.
Okay.
And so we go to his appointment, grab some Arby's, and get straight back in the stand. Still raining, okay? So we climb up there. I'm still pretty much soaked and trying to keep all the camera gear dry. Still trying to figure out all like
what
how to
even
film,
doing.
what he wants, what I'm trying to do. You know what I mean? And right before dark, this buck gets up out of bed. Mark calls to him, hits a scrape. He starts coming in, and it's raining so hard, like I can't get the big camera out because this is back when like we had tapes and they would just get ruined if they got wet.
Yeah,
I think they're probably a little bit better now.
Yeah, a little more durable.
So I pull out this palm quarter and I flip the screen out, but it's raining and like it's getting all over the screen. So I have to fold it shut and I'm looking through a little peephole on it. You know what I mean?
The eyepiece.
And first of all, this is like one of the biggest deer I've ever been around at that time. I never grew up around big deer.
Yeah.
Right? And so this thing's coming in and I'm sitting here filming Matt Drury, like I was a fan my whole entire life. And like, is this even real? So this deer comes in, I don't know, maybe 20 yards. And I'm sitting there filming. I know I got him, but because all the rain is blurring my vision in this little peephole in the camera, I called Mark off the buck, right? I was like, don't shoot. I don't have him. And,
bold move by a new guy.
Yeah. I was like, in my mind, I'm like, dude, like, he does this every day on these awesome farms. Like, if I have to call him off one, we'll just go whack another one. Like in my mind, this happens every day up here, right?
Because that's what TV made it seem like.
Yes.
For sure.
And it kind of does too sometimes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I called him off the deer and he's like, how'd you not have him? I was like, well, I did, but I couldn't tell for sure. And I didn't want you shooting off camera. So I figured it was a safe move. So we get back, we look at the footage. He's like, you got him. It's perfect. Why'd you call me off? And there were some other words exchanged by him, but he was not happy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And but anyway, and then the next morning, we go out and we kill one right off the bat. Footage was a smash. Everything was beautiful. Everything was good then.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of how it started.
So from that point, then you're a camera guy for them.
Yes.
And back then they were bouncing back and forth between, like, they had a couple guys helping, and they'd go back and forth between Mark in Iowa, Terry in Missouri, and you know, which is a few hours apart or whatever. But so who else was working with us? I know John Williams was helping Terry a lot.
Josh Braun was there at the time.
Yeah.
And then the other Josh, redhead.
Oh, yeah. Hopkins.
Hoppy. Yeah.
Yep.
I couldn't think of it.
Yep.
Hoppy was there. And so after that hunt with Mark, I went home for a couple days. He's like, you did a good job. If you want the job, you know, you can come on board. So I was like, heck yeah. I was like, but I kind of need to go home and like wrap a few things up before I just move up.
Tie up the rest of my life.
Yeah. It's like I had to go home. I unenrolled from school. I dropped out of school. And I'm getting the GI Bill too. So like I had to work through all that. And then obviously Bass Pro, I had to put my 2 weeks in there, which is basically like, I'm not coming back. No offense to Bass Pro.
Sorry, Johnny and JP.
Sorry. My wife still worked there. You can have her for a little bit.
Yeah.
But, and then when I came back up, I went to Terry's farm.
Yeah.
In the next few weeks, I was with Terry. So,
yeah. So those early days of hunting with those guys was a lot different.
Yeah.
Than it is now. I don't know. It was still, I mean, at that point, you know, we started in 88, 89, started with the deer stuff in the early 90s. So TV started 2003. Like TV was, though, like we were really hitting strides. 07, like that was kind of the heyday years.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It was.
So, you know, starting, I think Dream Season was still a big deal, the TV show.
Yeah.
You know, so then we'd also have those group hunts where like you'd come and film for the group hunts.
Oh, it was so much fun, man.
It was. Those years, there was a lot of work, a lot of long hours. And
there's a lot of long hours, but there's a lot of variety to the season because, you know, spend a couple weeks with Mark, sometimes only a couple days, depending how the hunting went. And then I'd go sit with Terry, which I think that first year, I want to say it was like 45 or 52 days or something in a row before we killed.
My man.
Yeah. And it was almost all tree stand hunting.
Yeah.
The only time we hunted box blinds was like nasty weather, which sometimes we still hunt a tree, or like late season or rifle. Other than that, we were primarily in the trees.
Terry still does that. Him and Forrest hunted tree stands a ton this year. And of course, when he finally killed, it was out of a box blind. Like it's just how it happens.
It's just how it happens.
Their best spots a lot of times are set up that way.
Yeah. But back then it was like you hunt with Mark a little bit, you hunt with Terry, you go over to Jim Tomey's, you did the group hunts, and the group hunts were in different locations. So it was like, it was really cool. We just did a lot of stuff throughout the season.
Yeah. A lot of traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and their styles, their hunting styles were pretty. There's a lot of contrast between the two styles. Mark's always been real aggressive and, you know, very analytical, and so is Terry, but on the analytical side, but not as aggressive. He's a kind of a I'll hit my head into the wall 100 times until I break the wall kind of guy, right? I mean,
Terry's very stubborn.
That's a good way to put it.
I mean, it's a good quality a lot of times. When you're a cameraman, sometimes you question that quality. But it didn't really matter, honestly, because even if he tags out, we're still going to go to the next spot and keep hunting.
Yeah.
And then even if we got tagged out for the whole season, we'd have guests up, or we'd be shooting does, or there's never really an end of the season, but
yeah, like when you say tagged out, like tagged out in Missouri until like with bow until gun season starts. So then they go to Illinois, right? Yeah. Like they always have another tag in another state to go keep. The hunting never ends.
Yeah.
Never stops.
Which was fine with me. I mean, I enjoyed it because like I said, I had never been around the numbers of deer and the big deer. And, you know, I grew up hunting, you know, public ground and small farms and usually share with multiple other people. We were doing deer drives during gun season and all that was fun, but like we didn't kill any big deer. You know, you got really lucky if you kill one.
Yeah.
Whereas then I go with these guys and just being a cameraman for just a couple years. I mean, it's like getting a master's degree in whitetails. There's so many things these guys know. It's unbelievable that a lot of it never even gets conveyed on camera.
Yeah, and I think we take for granted the stuff because they've this is 35 years in the business, and they have given away so many tips and information on different videos, like the whole 100% Wild DVD series. Every year was a different set of tips and tactics about 1 year's food plots, 1 year's tree stands, 1 year's calling, so I think they take it for granted that they've spouted this stuff out so many times, or like now it's all in DeerCast, all the information and the daily videos and all that stuff. So I think they take it for granted, like, oh, the audience has heard it 100 times, but it's like, man, I think they could hear it 100 more and never get tired of it, which is why 13 was so popular when it launched, because people couldn't believe they break it down like this. But it's like they break every hunt down that way every day for 4 months straight for 35, 40
We would
years.
have a journal at the end of every hunt. And I don't know if do they still do the journal
I know
entries?
Forrest does for Terry. I don't know if Wade and Perry do that for Mark or not.
So at the end of every hunt, I would have to do a journal entry, and we would put the weather conditions, the wind direction, what we expected to see and why we set that particular spot. And then I would put what we saw and how many we saw and the age class and why we thought we saw that. And if they went straight to the beans or if they fed in the green, like they're so analytical, and that's why they're able to come up with DeerCast, because those guys are so analytical, they're so scientific and sharp. They're able to put all that together over the course of years, and I mean, you can't really argue it.
It's not 100% foolproof, but it's pretty damn good.
Based off a lot of experience.
Yeah. So one of the things I always thought was interesting. So you were doing a lot of the farm management then too. It started as camera guy, but you evolved into working on the farm as well. So planting the food plots, and like, did you even have much experience with that before going there?
Not really. I mean, we would do food plots on my buddy's farm, but mostly it was, just putting out clover, and like a lot of times we wait till September, October and put out winter wheat and stuff like that. But, and we already had our set spots in place that we planted every year. There really wasn't a whole lot of thought into it. But with Mark and Terry, it all went to another level as far as like putting in the beans and the corn and that whole process. Yeah. And then just all the strategy that goes around it.
Yeah. Their food
primarily get them within bow range.
Yeah. Their food plot architecture. Yeah. Is kind of, and Terry's a civil engineer and Mark's just a sharp guy when it comes to those types of things. So they come up with ways to, okay, I've noticed a deer doing this XYZ all year. Okay, we need to, they're thinking about next year's plantings while they're sitting there looking at it this year. Yeah. Constantly. It's like, okay, we need to switch this and that around. And now they, Wade and Perry and Forrest, like all great at what they do. So they can now bounce that stuff. A lot of times these guys have their own ideas that they bring to the table too, and add a lot to it. Yeah. So back then they probably weren't as keen to taking advice. No, I would say probably not. But, at that time, I didn't know anything. Yeah. So why would they? Yeah, but also when you've hunted for 45 straight days, like sometimes it's like, okay, why don't we try this or that? Terry liked to do the opposite. Oh yeah, So if I recommended, hey, we should probably go here because this deer's been here, we'd definitely go to a different spot. So sometimes you got to play a mind game. Like, I know we need to go to Buds. If I say Walnut Grove, then maybe we'll actually go to Buds. That's 100% how he is. And in business too, by the way, Mark and I knew that trick a long time ago. It's like, okay, if we had an idea of like, we think the company, we should do this. It's like, all right, he's not going to be down for that. Let's suggest it a different way or make it think it's his idea. And honestly, and same for Mark with Terry. It's like, they're very strong-willed guys, but that's why they've been successful. Yeah, sometimes you had to play that game. It's a very endearing feature. So give me a story, something like the first one's great about the rainy day. Cause I know like the full story. It's funny, but is there another, like you've messed up, flat tire on a tractor? We had Wade, Perry and Forson year and a half ago and Wade flipped a tractor once, like that kind of stuff. Anything crazy like that? I was pretty easy on equipment. Timmy was the rough one, wasn't he? Timmy was a rough one. He messed some stuff up.
I've always been pretty easy on equipment. I'm trying to think if there's a good. I feel like there's got to be a good one with Terry. I know he'd chew my ass out a lot, like raking the gravel in the barn.
Okay, so tell.
Okay, well, here's the thing. So with Mark, well, you know, my home is still in Wentzville, and like with Mark and Terry, I would during the summertime when we're not filming, we're just working. I would work all week, and then I would come home Friday afternoons. I'd go back up first thing Monday morning, and Terry was notorious that if I was not up at the farm by 7 a.m. on Monday morning, like I was getting a phone call from him. You know what I mean? Why aren't you up here? And I'm like, I'm doing 90. Dude, I'm probably driving a lot faster than I should be. But I'm like, I'm going to be up here all week long, working till dark every day.
Yeah, you're going to get 12 hours out of me every day.
You're going to get your time out of me. But no, those guys could be kind of challenging to work for, but it's just because they're so driven and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So,
and Mark was always notorious about calling you at the end of the day on a Friday.
Oh yeah,
right?
On a Friday, I'd be about an hour from the farm, heading home, you know, and hey, could you? I need you to go check on this spot, or you go check on these beans, or can you pop that blind up, or whatever, you know? And it's like, yeah, I'm already on the road. But he knew it. He knew.
They're good at checking.
It was a mind game, I'm sure.
They're good at the check-in. Yeah, I always said when I worked for my dad's construction company growing up, you know, and I'm talking like I'm in 8th grade, you know, freshman, high school, whatever, and don't have zero idea what I'm doing. And, you know, just, hey, go sweep this, go carry this concrete farm over here, over there. It's all the, you know, grunt work. But it didn't matter how hard I worked. As soon as I went to take a water break, it could be 11 a.m. first time I took a break. It's the time of day he pulled up on the job site every day, every time. So by and large, it'd be like, how come every time I come on this job site, you're sitting around? It's like, I swear to you, this is just my shitty luck. Okay.
It's just a thing, man.
It's just, it's probably all bosses everywhere, but
I worked for my dad's construction company. It was the same stuff.
Yeah.
I grew up getting yelled at. And after being in the Marine Corps, I got yelled at a lot more.
So yeah, it was straight to Mark and Terry. It was just like...
Terry would yell at me about something else.
Okay, so you mentioned the gravel, the rock gravel in the barn. So Dad has this like real fine like pea gravel, you know, basically inside the barn where we, especially back then, used to hang out a lot. Mm-hmm. He would make you rake the gravel in the straight lines.
Yeah, just like a sand trap, you know what I mean? At a golf course that it looked really pretty. I'll give him that. I've never had to rake gravel in my barn before. Every Friday before I'd go home during the summer, you have to rake that gravel. Nice lines everywhere.
And sweep the gravel that got on the concrete part off.
Oh, yeah. That was a problem. Usually we'd hose that off, too. So, but, I mean.
Dude, and that's why his farm is the probably prettiest in North Missouri.
Yeah, it's so nice.
It's a golf course.
It is. He's got one of the prettiest farms I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, and you do this for a living.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just the way he mows everything, the roads, everything. It's set up nice.
Yeah, and he's just a meticulous, like that's how he is. He's meticulous in his personal life. I mean, that's just how he is.
Yeah. It's served him well. So.
Yeah. So, okay, so enough about that. The transition from doing that, you kind of transitioned out of that. You worked for them for a few years, and then you transitioned into the land sales. But was it right away? Or did you come back and we're doing something in between?
When Jessica and I got engaged, I came home. And that's when I came more of like a subcontractor with you guys, helping out with the filming, than a full-time employee. And I went back to work construction for my dad for a little bit. But then after that is when I came on with Whitetail.
Yeah, which is like the early days of Whitetail.
Yeah, it was like 2012.
Yeah,
I think Whitetail was they were formed in 2007, I think. So
yeah. So how did the filming side and working with Mark and Tara, the management of properties, did that have any influence on then how you looked at land, how you
100%
valued it, knew what you were looking at? Kind of talk about that maybe a little bit.
Oh yeah. I mean, it really helps you look at things from a big picture, like not just the property itself, but like the neighborhood as a whole. You know what I mean? And what timber patches and draws are nearby, even if they're on the neighbor's farm.
Yeah.
And what you could do with food plots on it. man, oh man, I mean, that helped a lot. You know, because growing up, you don't think in those perspectives. You think, here's my 40 acres, we're going to put a plot here and a stand here and see what comes out. That's about as much as our strategies were going. You know? So.
So the types of things that you look at when you're looking at a piece of property or, you know, listing something for somebody, it's what? Structure, the amount of timber versus ag, like kind of take us through a little bit of that.
Yeah, I mean, first, you got to figure out what the highest and best use of that property is. If it's mostly ag, then obviously it's going to be sold as an ag property. But if you have a lot of timber button up to it or some timber veins running through there with some brush and there is good deer sign, I mean, some really, really good farms that I've sold that they've killed a lot of big deer on have been mostly ag properties. I mean, Mark and Terry probably had those too, you know, if you set them up right. But yeah, obviously we're going to look at the structure of the ground, the topography, areas where food plots can be either put in or if there's already existing plots, your access, wind directions, you know, what your thermals are going to do. And then a big demand in my market is building sites. People want to know if there's utilities there, if they can put up a cabin or machine shed. I know you've been dealing with this too. So it's just as important to you, I think, as it is a lot of other people, you know?
Yeah. I think there's been, let's see, I'm trying to think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different properties that I've either bought and owned on my own or bought with Terry, you know, as an investment together. And the two that sold the fastest without ever even relisting them, after barely having them, had buildings on them. Yeah. And it's kind of like a light bulb. It's like, okay, so if I could find a piece of property that A, has a building on it, that's one thing, which they're more expensive to buy, but the resale is nuts. But B, if I could find a piece that I could throw a building up on, like I'm looking at that differently now. Yeah. As, okay, there's going to be an input cost with it. But if I can find something that I can then put a building on, even just like a 20 by 40 or whatever, something to kind of get somebody like a garage. And, you know, if you could like fix up a little bit of the inside of it, 20 by 60, 40 by 60, whatever. Yeah. And then have a little bit of a living quarters, then it's even way better.
Like the ideal listing would be anywhere from 40 to 150 acres with a machine shed with little living quarters in it, and a night, you know, with electric and water. Yeah, some good hunting. I mean, we would sell them. I could sell them all day, every day, assuming they were priced correctly. Yeah, and that's everyone wants.
That's the one I just picked up and just sold. Yeah, and didn't have any intention to do that. You know, so. That's, I think, especially in this area, this is the St. Louis area for those that may be in other areas. So the places that we're looking are all within a couple hours of St. Louis. Yeah. So that drives the market. The prices are ridiculous.
They're ridiculous.
Especially because then I look up at North Missouri and I've looked a little bit in Illinois but I'm not looking in Iowa because it's impossible to get that tag. So, I mean, it'd be a great investment. You probably get ground right, but for what we do, I also need to be able to hunt it. So when I look at like the North Missouri prices, it's nuts to me how much more acreage I can buy.
It's amazing. It's night and day difference. But
then I think I'll never go up there.
Well, there's that. It's just so hard to get up there. And if you do that, you might as well just go to Terry's. Exactly. You always have an open invitation up there. Yeah. And, you know, they got rid of party hunting in Iowa. So I would think that would create more demand up in northern Missouri. Like there already is a high demand. Yeah. But I would think that would drive prices up. Because a lot of these out-of-state, non-resident buyers, they want to go to North Missouri because they can actually hunt. Yeah. You know, a farm that they own. And it's as close to Iowa as you can get. Mm-hmm. So I would expect to see those prices start going up. I mean, they're always kind of going up, right? But like that might escalate it.
And they are still high, don't get me wrong, but they're not like the St. Louis market.
No, right? The $6,000 to $7,000, $8,000 an acre plus, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, you look at it like, oh, are there deals to be had up there? Yeah. Like I've seen some really nice pieces of property on all the different real estate companies out there. Like there's some nice properties to go after, but I just keep so like if you're in it to flip it, there probably are some good properties to go look at. Mm-hmm. But the problem is like if you're in it to keep it or hunt it and you live 3-4 hours away, or, you know, I don't know how these out of state guys do it. Like I would like to be there more often.
You know, just from what I've seen, a lot of these out of state guys, they'll come up and pay big prices to lease ground or they'll buy ground. And the way they look at it is they'll get some of their buddies, they all go in on it together and they come up and they hunt like a week of bow leading up to gun, then they hunt gun season, and then maybe they come back late season a little bit. And especially with the guys who lease, especially from down south, I feel like they pay more money than anyone. They treat it kind of like a vacation.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Whereas we kind of treat it as like an all year round, you know, strategically going and hunt.
Yeah.
They pile in there for 2 weeks and hunt pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, they are willing to like pay just about anything, it seems like, so that can kind of screw up the market.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, it's
not saying anything bad about it. Like, hey, I get it. Like if you're going to hunt, any guy I know from the South that has ever come up to the Midwest to hunt, they're like, dude, it's not even the same caliber of deer. Obviously, it's like, I can't get this type of hunting fix down south. Now I'll say, like, I see Steve France and Jared Gibson killing some great deer down south, but I know that they got access to some bigger properties. You know, they've worked hard and been able to, you know, control a bigger chunk of ground.
Well, another thing I was getting ready to say is up in northern Missouri too, now you have the issue with the CWD zones and MDC shooting deer. And so you might see a farm that you're like, God, that's a great price, but did they just shoot 100 deer on the neighbor's farm? And is there going to, you know, like, so I think that has some effect on the pricing as well. As well as the distance from St. Louis or the big cities.
Yeah, you got to definitely do your homework. Man, that'd be pretty devastating. I feel for those guys and those farms, and it's not happened to us yet to that extent, but, I mean, it's probably just a matter of time where they're like,
scary,
CWD positive, we're going to come in, and then if you say no, then they go to all your neighbors. And
yeah,
we had them on the podcast, and they were pretty open and honest about it, but, man, they take a lot of shit for their policies, and I think in a lot of cases, rightfully so. Like, I get that their science says that it's a fatal disease, but you don't see it. Like you see like a EHC go wipe something out, which was my question directly to those guys. And they answered it, but it was like, hey, look, why can't we have more on the EHD side, more money spent on the EHD side and how to fix that? Because you get a whole herd wiped out. Whereas if it's a CWD positive and he didn't die, he died by bullet.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like, okay, now we're going to go kill 100 more. It seems it's just a really weird math.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me and hardly anybody.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been a lot more pushback and outrage and discussion on that topic. So I'm seeing a lot of stuff on social media from a lot of different people starting to complain about it. So we'll see how it all pans out.
Yeah.
So I'm not smart enough to know the answer to the problem.
That's the same thing I always say. Look, I'm not a freaking deer biologist, so I don't know what's real, what's not.
It doesn't seem like it makes sense, but once again, I'm also not smart enough to provide a solution either. So.
Hey, as long as we know we're dumb, that's all that matters. That's why we get along so well.
Probably. I've never claimed to be the smartest guy in the room.
No, you've done all right for yourself. So hunting season, we talked about on the podcast when I kind of recapped my kill there on the lease that we had together. You had a different perspective of it because you were hunting the same lease. We were at pretty much the same 2 deer, but the one I killed, you were after hard. The one you killed, I was after hard. What was your experience from the season? Kind of a little bit tougher in some respects than I thought it would be.
Yeah. Well, it sounded like everyone kind of had a tough season. You know, honestly though, I look back and I thought my season was pretty good. I mean, we started off in Idaho. I filmed Wainwright kill that big elk. So that was awesome. And then, you know, filmed Cody West kill his buck. And I kill mine. And then I filmed Kate shoot her first buck, my daughter Kate. So all in all, it was a great season. And we saw a lot of deer every time we hunted up there on that base.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it took a little more effort. Part of it probably because our first year we really weren't dialed in on it. And yeah, I was fully expecting you to harvest the buck that I shot, not myself. Just because you were on him so hard, I just figured, well, it's a matter of time he's going to get him. And then And then he pops out with me the rifle. Of course, I got to shoot him, right? And like, I don't know if it's on camera or not, but I remember telling Logan, I was like, I kind of feel bad. I was like, I know Matt's been hunting that deer. You were doing some pretty brutal stuff to like, you had some really tough sits, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
To hunt that deer. Like, you put in so much effort on him. I almost felt bad when I shot him.
I wouldn't feel bad, and I mentioned it, I think, on the podcast. It's like, you were hunting hard too. We both were hunting hard. And that's probably the interesting part about sharing a lease. It's probably pretty relatable to most people listening. Like we don't have, usually, like, you got your own spot. I got my own spot. Like, I don't share a lease much anymore. I used to with Wayno share that deer lease, but he really wasn't ever there. So it really wasn't sharing it, other than, we had one big deer.
Yeah.
He killed it.
Yeah.
You filmed him.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff. I guess with Doug, we kind of shared that. That was an interesting experience because we did share a lease a couple years ago, the Marthasville lease, and the landowner hunted with us. So that was interesting. But I think the tough part is to know when you have one by yourself, you make the decision, you go to any spot you want to, and there's nothing really impeding it.
Yeah, there's no other factors.
When you're sharing a lease, obviously you're sharing it typically because you're friends with the person, or else you wouldn't be sharing it. So everybody's in it for the same reasons. Everybody's trying to kill a deer and then justify their freaking spend that they had on the piece, because nothing's cheap.
Yeah.
Right?
No, nothing's cheap.
So you got that element. So it's like, okay, if it's big enough where you could kind of divide it up and say, all right, I'm kind of honing in over here, you're honing in over there, that's all good. But every once in a while, it's like, okay, you're not going to be up today, I'm going to hunt over here. It is what it is. Like, you got every right.
Yeah.
The lease partners have every right to go anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, kind of the way I looked at it, just kind of like teamwork, and honestly, like, I don't think I ever hunted on Ridge 1 the whole entire season because you were so honed in on them.
You didn't.
I mainly hunted on the south end and then Ridge 2 on the clover plot, which we had never gotten pictures or seen. The one, the buck I killed, we never saw him up on that clover.
No, which is where you were when you killed him. So it's
you can't control them. Like, these deer don't know that we named them. Like, they don't know they're running around with the name. They're just. It's November, man. They're just running around doing their thing.
And you got to that part of the season. It's one thing to hone in on them. I know that's why, like, a lot of people that are serious hunters always hate the rut, because it's like they try to kill them before the rut, because that's when you can pattern them the most. And that's kind of what we both had. Both of the deer we were after patterned, and then rut hit. And so it's like, oh, hell broke loose, and that's what we ended up with. Yeah. But we both had opportunities, and that's the main thing. And they were the two biggest deer on the farm. Yeah. They were the ones we were after, and we killed them. I wish we could have killed them with bows. But and we tried.
We tried.
Hunted tree stands a ton.
We came close a couple times.
Yep. But we knew when we set the farm up, we knew, like, where we put the box blind, like, okay, this is gonna be like probably the killing spot. And sure shit, we killed all 3 bucks because Cody's was out of the same
consecutive sits.
Yeah, out of the same spot.
Yeah. So that's such a good spot.
Yeah.
I mean, if you only put one stand on that whole entire farm, that would be the spot
for sure. So. Now that piece is listed. So.
It's for sale now.
Yeah.
1,061 acres, and it is a smoker. It honestly,
we may not have it next year to hunt.
No, and we kind of knew that going into it. But just honestly, like, just to be able to hunt a farm of that caliber, without having to travel all the way up to northern Missouri.
Oh,
I know.
What I mean? It's like
when you get 1,000 acres, almost 1,100 acres within an hour of Wentzville. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we got control of it super late. Put us behind the 8 ball, but because of the way the weather was, it really didn't matter. No. It really didn't matter.
We couldn't have done any more with the plots.
So we hunted super hard. Basically, only started late October, and then November we hunted hard for those 3 weeks. Yeah. So, anyways, that's when we killed basically all our deer, and then the doe season, antlerless season, you and the guys went up and killed 9
in one night,
something like that.
Cody, Logan, Jeremy, and myself. We went up there and in 2 hours, man, we were like, boom, boom, boom. Yeah. And I told them, I was like, honestly, if I knew we were going to have this on a multi-year term, we'd probably try to come back up and probably shoot 30.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what I mean?
It could have used
so many deer on the property.
We didn't think it did early on, but it was that drought really killed the movement. And
like, I think they were just so scattered back in the timber.
Yeah.
And down along the creeks, and the lake, which we stayed away from all of that stuff.
Yeah.
We felt like it was the buck to doe ratio was pretty even, but then once they got off those acorns, started coming out to the bean plots, it was like, holy cow.
Yeah, there was a lot.
A lot.
Anyhow, well, what's up next? We got turkey season coming. First, we got shed season. Anything major coming up for you?
No, man. Start looking for some sheds here in about a month and a half, and then
you already found some. You went to you went to show that property this week and picked
up 2 match sets, nothing big, little ones, and then another one. We weren't out shed hunting; we were just driving the side by side around.
Yeah,
they were laying there on that first ridge in Ridge 1. So yeah, trick with that, just stay out until you know they've dropped.
Yeah, that's the hard part. So
then we got turkeys and bass fishing.
Gonna get in a few tournaments. Yeah, lake time. So Aaron, Lake of the Ozarks in the Missouri area is like the big kind of destination place. Well, he's got a little place down there, and Mark Terry, they have a few. So we end up seeing each other. We're all in the same area, mile marker, so we get to see each other during the summertime and hang out and drink some bush lattes.
Heck yeah.
Enjoy summertime. So. All right, well, that's all I got. Aaron stopped into the studio today to film some interviews, so we took the opportunity to jump on the podcast. But
thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll have some more funny stories, I'm sure. Like there's some really good stories from Terry's, like the bar. Because we used to go out to the bars, in town in Kirksville. Yeah, and that's when it used to be.
I didn't even think about any of those stories. Those were some good ones.
Those are the real good stories. So maybe for another day we'll save it.
That was fun though.
Yeah,
those are the good old days. Those really were the good old days.
The quote, something like, "I wish you knew you were in the good old days when you were," something about that. Like, I wish I knew I was in the good old days when I was in them.
Yeah, that was it.
Man, we had a blast. Because I was single. You were not single, but he'd bring Jess up to her, to hang out, and
we just go to the bars, have fun.
Yeah, Comstock. Terry, that's when Terry was going out still with us, hanging out.
Comstock, Kilmer.
Yeah.
Ryan Narup would be up there sometimes.
Yeah.
Timmy.
Fun stuff. So the guys were wild back then.
Yeah, we were wild.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that anymore, man.
Not like we used to.
No.
Get up and go hunt in the morning.
No. Why do that? I think I only hunt like a few mornings every year during the rut. And other than that, it's more evening based.
Yeah.
Which suits our lifestyles a lot better.
For sure.
Especially with work and kids.
Yeah. You got 2 young kids. Same like
dropping them off at school in the morning.
Yeah. Every day.
Daddy duty.
Make their lunches. Pack their lunches. Get them to school. Sometimes have to pick them up. Aaron and I complain a lot to each other about.
We're good dads, man.
We are good dads.
We deserve to hunt more.
Neither of us probably experienced to the same degree. It's like, man, I can't hunt tonight. I gotta go do XYZ with the family. That stuff's an expectation
all the time.
And you want to be there, obviously. But we talk about it on the podcast. It's like, but back in the day, that was not the expectation from our dads.
No.
No. That's a whole different podcast.
Wouldn't have it any other way, though.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Man. Thanks.
All right. Until next time, everybody. I think we're going to have maybe JJ Kleiser and Kyle Lamore, a couple of our team members from Illinois. They're coming in to shoot some interviews. They had like the best season of all seasons.
Dude, killers.
Yeah. Man. They tagged out in Illinois, all 4 giant bucks. So.
Dude, they deserve that. They were due to have an awesome season.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to have them on next week. So stay tuned to that. And until next time, appreciate you all tuning in and listening. Until next time, peace out.
Peace.
DeerCast is completely updated and better than ever. Prep, predict, and pursue your target buck with our detailed maps, weather, and 14-day movement predictor.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast Maps, waypoints, weather, virtual rain gauges, and more. Every tool you need to get ahead of your game.